Welcome back to Prometheus Podcast. My name is Landon Wade. I'm here with Colin Burns.
Howdy.
And Sean Ju.
Hey.
This is episode 3 of Prometheus Architecture Podcast. We're real happy to be back for number 3. We, what was it? Last time we talked about a short little 15 segment about, rough intro to architecture school and a little bit more background.
Is that rough supposed to be like a double entendre right there?
That depends on how you want it to be entendra'd. So, anyway, we're back, episode 3. We're going to start this week with our segment that we call A Day in the Life. Talk a little bit about what's happening in architecture school this week for us. Who wants to start? Colin.
I guess I'll go.
All right. Colin's got it.
Let's see, this week's been rough. Monday we started beginning the construction of our site models for our studio project. And if any of you can relate to that, it is a pain trying to take, computer data and maps, drawings, and trying to put that into a physical 3D form. But today marks the day that we finished our site model. We probably invested 16 hours this week into it.
I was there. I saw it. Yeah.
I didn't see it, so I don't know.
Sean's on the other side over there. We, the interesting thing, one of the things I dislike about this phase that we're in, this is the preparatory phase to the actual design work that we do in designing buildings. The quarrel I have with it is the fact that it's heavily group work. It's a lot of group work we do in the start, especially with the site model, things like that. So these site models we've built, they're basically replicas of the land that we're going to build on is essentially what's happening. And the site models we've built, mine is 8 feet long by 4 feet. And I think Sean's, y'all's is too, right?
No, ours is 12 feet long by 4 feet.
Okay, yeah. So Sean's is 12 feet long by 4 feet.
Ours is 2 feet wide by 8 feet long.
Okay, so these are pretty big things. That's partly why we do teamwork and things like that. I struggle with teamwork, personally. I don't know.
I absolutely love teamwork.
I feel like it puts
the best. Every
Every time we do group work, it always ends up relying heavily on one person doing 90% of the work.
See, and I feel like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I just feel like I end up being the one that's got to do the dirty work most of the time.
Well, you do work construction on your spare time.
I want to mention.
I
just want to mention the importance of a reputation, because once you're known as a hard worker, you'll have to work hard on everything you do. But once you're known as not that hard of a worker, people have low expectations, and all you really have to do is just get to that low expectation.
But don't people want to hire hard workers?
That's the hard part.
Not for the site model.
So, needless
what's
to
the
say,
hard part?
me and one other group member of mine, we've been working quite a bit on this thing, and the others maybe not so much. We're still, we're still moving along. It's a stressful process, needless to say. I enjoy the part of architecture school that's just me and my design, and we're just, it's just full speed ahead.
Me, myself, and I.
Me, myself, and I, and my design. And Sean has like 5 designs.
Getting a little personal there.
Well, I'm just saying. It's a good thing, though. It's a good thing.
Not when you can't wrap it up.
Well, anyway. So that's the day in the life for you in architecture school this week. What else?
Well, Colin and I had a little meeting about our summer plans.
Oh, yeah. We had our study abroad meetings this week. The first informational meetings for our trips we're taking this summer.
Hot dog.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sevilla, Spain. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the legal drinking age is 16, so Colin can actually drink alcohol legally.
Yeah, because, right now I'm just drinking good old agua. Some water, some
That's
H2O.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
water, carbohydrate, and some
Wheaties and water, Just
Yep.
got to get your carbs and protein.
That's the good stuff.
It's a perfect food.
Yeah, so this summer most students are going to do a study abroad. I have elected not to because the price is very high.
It's only
Muy alto.
$15,000.
Yeah, it's only $10,000 for a study abroad.
It's not that bad.
Yeah, well,
Take out a loan, build your credit.
Yeah. So anyway,
if you don't have one already,
I would rather stay here That's what's going on.
Yeah.
You're just an L7 weenie, man.
Architecture school, to be honest, doesn't get the most fundings, and and this goes the same for not just for our university, but all the other universities. Architecture school is probably one of the least funded out of all schools.
They're pretty low funded programs. He's right about that.
Along with like psychology.
Why? Why would you put us down there?
Hey, education gets way more funding than we do, so I can't put them down there.
The irony is that I think we're the ones that benefit most from the profession of psychology.
Hey, poors be with poors, or riches be with riches.
Yeah, anyway. Well, so our topic this week is going to be pretty interesting. Topics, I should say. We have 2 topics. We're going to kind of
correlate together.
They correlate. They do have correlations, so we're not just like randomly rolling the dice here. This is one of them is a discussion we had a little bit earlier this week, after we had an interesting occurrence at a restaurant. That topic will be chivalry. And we're going to tie that in. We're going to tie that in with cliches. And I think it's going to be pretty good. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting discussion. This is the first time, obviously it's only episode 3, so this is the first time for a lot of things. But specifically that we're trying to tie together 2, I think, fairly complex topics. So, anyway, the topic is that chivalry, I'm a very chivalrous person. And I'm the kind of guy, if you ask my fiance, I'm the kind of guy, I make sure that I hold the door open for her, and I make sure and escort her when I can. And I really, that's been not violently, but my sisters made sure that I knew chivalry up and down by the time I was 16. So when I started dating and stuff, I could take care of a woman. And that's something that's really been a critical part of my life. And I still do that. I still try to hold the door open for everybody, not just my fiance, but I try to hold doors open. It's just a manner of being polite and, caring for the people around me. So that's kind of what chivalry means to me. That's my position. And the question today is, is chivalry dead? A lot of people ask that, or they'll say chivalry's dead, chivalry's not dead. I don't think it's dead, because it still matters to me. And if you ask the women in my life and the people around me,
yeah, all 3 of them.
Yeah. Well, hey, there's. What are you talking? Are you talking about Jess, you, and Sean? Those are the 3 women. No, I have 3 sisters.
Please don't include me on lists like this.
A mom and a fiance. So I think they would agree that like chivalry is not dead. It's still something that's really valuable to them and a lot of people. So, Colin's turn. Where are you at with chivalry, Colin? What do you believe in?
I would say I lean more towards I have chivalry, but in some cases, to me it's all context of a situation. I'd like to have chivalry, but some women just, I've had instances where I've held the door for a woman and she yells at me, "Oh, I can hold my own door open." So, to me, it sometimes comes to context for me. I would like to, I try to express chivalry as much as I can, but sometimes, it just doesn't work out that way.
Well, the people that aren't into that anymore, you gotta...
But I also feel chivalry also kind of leads into politeness.
Yeah.
And I feel like the more chivalrous you are, the more polite you are to people, and you express this through, like you say, holding the door for your girl then leads to holding the door open for other people. Therefore, you treat other people better, and then people also start to gain a higher respect for you as a person because you're more respectful of them.
Wow, it's my turn.
Yeah. Sean.
I don't know where to start with this conversation. I love being polite.
Should we start with Torchy's tacos?
So, where I stand is that I think chivalry needs to be separated from politeness, because chivalry in its original meaning is something very different than just being polite. It's a symbol of something that's bigger than just politeness. I mean, I'm a very polite person. When you ask any of the adults that we've been around to, I'm pretty sure Landon's parents love me more days than they love him. And Actually, I'm not pretty sure. I think that is a true statement.
Okay. They like you. They love Sean. He's
Fridays
very
and
polite.
Saturdays, those are my days. But I think chivalry on its own should be dead. Why shouldn't it?
Why shouldn't it be dead?
Yeah, I mean, if you separate the politeness from the idea of chivalry, then the chivalry it's old fashioned.
Yeah. See, I get why you would say that, but it's like I agree. Chivalry is totally old fashioned. Like, but that's partly what makes it so, I think, important. Especially, me being someone who is in a what today is seen as a more traditional relationship. I'm a straight male. I'm engaged to.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I'm engaged to a woman who is in love with me. Thank goodness. And I believe that's because that's a traditional, you could say, old-fashioned relationship. I believe in old-fashioned values.
Okay, there's a big difference between old-fashioned and a norm.
Okay, so is that old-fashioned or a norm?
The relationship that you talked about with a straight male and a straight female.
Yeah.
Well, I would say
That's
the
a norm.
norm, like, it's more than a norm. I would say he leans more towards the old-fashioned because of the things that they show in their relationship. The things they do lean more towards an old-fashioned relationship.
I mean,
We're not going to get into specifics because that's not listener-friendly. But
It's about me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about me, guys. I like this.
no, we're not going to talk about those because they're children listening.
are there? There shouldn't be. But I'm just saying, there's a difference between a social norm and an old-fashioned ways of doing things.
Well, I mean, there's so many different ways of dating now. What do you call a social norm? There's so many genders, quotation mark. Now, what is a social norm now?
a social norm.
You could say that's a social norm, but really is
I
it?
think acceptance is a social norm now.
Which is, like, acceptance is a positive thing.
Yeah.
I don't think people should care how other people are. I think we should just like people anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, he's that way, she's that way.
And
Like, whatever. Just like,
frankly speaking, I really don't care what they do and what they are.
Yeah.
And if I like them, I like them. If I don't like them, I
Yeah.
don't like them.
Yep.
It just needs to be, like, for me at least, it needs to be a little more centered around me and how I have to judge about things.
Well, I think, and I think that's kind of the idea of chivalry, is the fact that Sean, you're talking about it being more about you. I think chivalry is more really about other people, because chivalry is kind of that acting with others' preferences in mind.
I mean, I want to be clear on what the definition of chivalry that we're talking about. Are we talking about the old definition where it is?
Well, I don't think the definition has changed yet.
Definition hasn't changed, which the
So
chivalry would mean that.
Hit me with the old definition of chivalry,
I mean,
Sean.
it's not a definition, but this is where
I think chivalry is defined by the actions that it entails.
It's a history of the word chivalry. Is that in the medieval days, men needed to protect the knights. It's a code of the knights in the medieval days where you have to protect the woman and children because they are considered weaker beings than an
I don't think it's that they consider them. It was the duty of the man.
It was back.
Not
then.
that they saw them inferior, but it's
No,
the
they didn't
duty
see
of a
them
man to
inferior, but
protect
they
the
just saw them.
family.
They didn't see them as an inferior person. They just saw them as unfit.
But that's just what you said.
No, they just saw them unfit. I didn't say inferior. I just saw. That's not the point I was trying to get at.
No, I get it. I get what he's saying, though. Like, I think, historically, I think Sean is totally correct, though. Like, it was because women and children needed protection. And that was, right?
And,
is that what you're saying?
yeah, and I mean, those were the days when you were having wars left and right and people were dying because of random reasons.
Well, then in that case, I would think chivalry, the definition, or what people define it as, has changed a little bit.
Yeah. So I think the definition has changed. I think historically Sean's right on. I think the definition has totally changed. And, that being said, what I talk about as chivalry is definitely different too.
Well, that's why I say that's why I said you need to take the politeness out of the chivalry.
Yeah.
Because if the definition has changed, then the chivalry itself, the word is meaningless, I think.
Well, I mean, I think the word has meaning still because we give it meaning. Because we still talk about chivalry. In like most people, if you say they're a chivalrous person or there still is chivalry, they'll know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah.
And that's why, we're talking about it now, obviously, but it's not just a thing in the past, but it has changed. I think it definitely has changed because nowadays, I don't hold the door open and take care of my fiance because she needs any of that. I know she doesn't, and she likes to remind me of that sometimes. But I remind her right afterwards. Look, it's not a matter of you being less than or needing this. It's a matter of me wanting to show affection. That really is the base level of it. Which is okay.
I think it's the respect that we hold them in a higher importance than we do ourselves. Show them how much we respect them.
So it could be, it's seen a little bit.
Yeah.
From the other.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, because what I'm saying is to take, because what you do for your fiance is a polite thing to do.
Yeah.
And politeness is what I consider as a social norm. Because
But is it really a social norm?
Oh, right.
Politeness is a dying act of society.
It is,
Depends
but
on where you
it
live.
still is a social norm. People will treat those people that are not polite as some people that wouldn't fit into someone who wouldn't fit into a society.
Right.
So I think it is a social norm that to be polite to other people. And what you do to your fiance is very polite, opening the door for a woman. I mean, it's not like I don't do that. I don't want to be advocating against politeness.
Okay.
But I think the conversation of chivalry needs to take its place on its own rather than to talk about the politeness as a whole.
Well, I guess using the door opening reference is where you connect the politeness and chivalry, but he does way more than just hold the door open for her. That leads more to that chivalrous side than politeness.
If when you're saying chivalrous side, I just don't quite understand what you mean. Because he's not holding the door for her because she can't open the door herself.
Yeah, Sean's relating more to the culture of chivalry. We're relating more to like today's definition and use of the word chivalry.
Yeah.
So
and
that's why
I think the word lost its meaning and it's time to let the word go and just say I'm being polite.
not the behavior, but the word itself. And that's
The behavior.
a fair argument. I could get on with that. That's fair. So, is chivalry cliche? Chivalry, maybe. Should I talk about politeness? Is politeness cliche? Is it overused? When does politeness become cliche? Maybe is a...
Politeness should never become cliche.
But maybe, here's my
No,
thought.
I think you can be over polite, where it starts to become off as
Kind of freaky.
not freaky, but more so like,
artificial.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
It
I've
feels-
come across it to where I feel like
It feels forced.
someone that was over polite, I start to think of them as arrogant or self-absorbed,
That's an interesting thought. I've never thought about that before.
or
But
they
that's
see
totally
themselves higher than other people, so they're polite to everybody to not make those people feel bad.
For like, excuse me.
Yeah, I
because
have
I'm
come
way better
across
than
that. So I do feel in some cases it can be cliche, but as a whole, I don't think it is. I mean, you should always be polite to people because you never know who you're talking to, who you've run into, who that person is to you. They might come around in the future and do something for you. I mean, so to me, that's something my parents have engraved in me as well. You probably, Landon, to be polite to everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
It's, treat thy neighbor as you want to be treated kind of ideology.
Yeah.
I think Colin brought up a very good point because I think of politeness as an investment.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, personally, I can be polite to people and that's no problem for me. And of course, that's no problem for them. That should be or is no problem for them. But it takes work to be polite because you have to be on time. And if you miss that like little timing window of being polite, then it could show as something else. It could have a different meaning based on the timing. So you have to be always on the lookout for those. And I think it's a good investment, good simple investment to make in relationships to really get things further, to get more out of that person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think people open up open themselves up to that politeness that they see in other people.
Yeah, it's like they reciprocate what they receive. In other words.
Yeah.
So it's this politeness becoming.
But cliche, the word cliche, I think it has a negative connotation to it.
It totally does.
Not a lot. It's not a bad word like some of the other words that I probably can't say. But I think the word cliche has a light touch of negativeness in it, where it's boring. It's not fun. It's bland. And I don't think politeness is a bland thing, because politeness is complicated because people have different intentions of being polite.
Yeah. No, that's true. Like, being polite is totally an action, but your reasoning is very different. You know, there's like you see in the movies all the time. The sinister beings are often very polite in the movies.
I think that's a cliche
because that totally is a cliche. You know, but because they're in a position of power and they know what they want. They know they're going to get it.
Really, if you think about it like that, then the politeness does become a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Where it can be good, but other times it can only seem good and bring in bad results.
No, I totally agree.
So I don't know. Cliche, I wouldn't say it's a cliche, but I would say more as a social norm, it's socially acceptable. And the people that aren't polite to others they have a harder time melting in with the society that they are in, most of the time at least.
Well, yeah, because they're fighting it. You know, if you're not polite, that really is I would say that's not even necessarily an established norm. That's just something that's a natural phenomenon that happens. That if you aren't polite, then you are going to get stepped on. You are going to have a rough life.
And honestly,
it's just harder when you're not.
The word polite it's as vague as you want it to be.
Yeah.
I can say that not murdering people is being polite. Because it's out of
you're respecting the rules. It's polite.
It's
you're
it's also out of the thoughts of other people's well-being.
That is true. You could totally stress.
So
that.
I wouldn't really put it as a cliche.
Yeah.
Of things, but politeness I think is a little too vague to be a cliche. Is what I'm trying to say.
Chivalry, considering how you do, Sean, kind of the historic meaning of it, the historic sense. Would that be considered cliche?
I think that's a cliche. I think it's detailed enough where it can be a cliche. And I'm not saying that, being chivalrous as a person, being chivalrous of today's definition is anyway boring or bland. That's not what I'm trying to say, but if you just take the word by itself and look at its historical meanings, then I think it's chivalrous. I think because every romantic comedy movie you watch, you see a guy opening a door to get the girl's heart.
It's cliche, right? Yeah.
It's just it's overused and it's boring, and something needs to something needs to happen about it, I think. And especially living in a day where equality is such a big thing. I think the idea of historically chivalry, it was established because somebody was in a higher position of power. Yeah. So I think that needs to kind of change and follow the times, flow of the time.
Well, I think that something I just thought about, honestly, is I think chivalry in the modern sense, or politeness, how Sean was talking about it, has become to a large degree not necessarily expected, but it has become normal for a lot of people. And in that sense, it becomes cliche, which I think contributes, when you think about it, to the whole, how girls like bad boys kind of a thing, men that may not treat them as well or whatever. It's because that other stuff's cliche. It's boring. They know what that is. People know what chivalry is. And because of that, it's become kind of cliche. People go looking for other things. So, now there's more romantic comedies with, other stuff. Other types of dudes that may not be the opening door chivalrous type guy, but the guys that kind of like that smart mouth and they're a little bit rough around the edges.
I feel like
chivalry.
Say, well, yeah, in a way it is. It becomes this sarcastic, like anti-chivalry.
Well, I agree with that 100%, but I feel like that's what women think they want. But if you notice, there's a trend. They gravitate towards that and realize that they really want someone that's chivalrous and polite.
So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's because it's like what was always established and
is what they always gravitate back to.
Exactly. Well, it's because that's safe.
It's safe, it's nice, it's pleasant, and in the end, I feel like everyone they just want to be safe in a relationship. Even if they don't realize it or not, they want to be safe.
I mean,
they want to feel protected.
Not just women. Well, I want to be safe in my relationship.
No, everybody does.
Yes.
Well, and I think that brings chivalry kind of full circle back to how Sean started with the historical context of it was the safety. The historical context is a level of physical safety, but I think nowadays not as much so. It's more a matter of emotional safety. Knowing you can trust somebody, knowing that consistency of them showing you that you're gonna take care of them. From both sides. I think it's totally ideally it's a 50-50 spread. Between two people in a relationship. However that's split, I think it should be an even thing. It is chivalrous, but the cliche does, I think, drive people to explore other avenues sometimes. Go for the bad boy or the bad girl, just to kind of see, because you get bored of the norm sometimes. So, Colin's rubbing for it. All right, I think we've come full circle on that piece of the conversation really quick. What do you do?
Bad girl. How do you define a bad girl?
No, we're not getting into that. We're not getting into
We're
this
not talking about that. So. Let's try and connect this now. Here at Prometheus Podcast, we try and connect normal everyday conversation. Well,
to architecture.
Architecture. Yeah, I wouldn't consider this normal every day because I don't think normal people actually have conversations like this. But this is a topic that everybody can get involved with. So now we want to try and draw this into architecture and show, chivalry in architecture. This is a question we were asking ourselves before we even hit the record button. We're like, how does that work? And cliches, kind of the dialogue, kind of connecting the dialogue we just had. How chivalry is cliche in some respects, but it's for a reason. It's because chivalry is safe. Chivalry in the modern sense, not chivalry / politeness, is this level of safety. It's a matter of
cliche in architecture can be found in almost everyday buildings. Like almost every single high rise that you'll ever visit in your life, the elevator shaft is always going to be in the middle.
It's true. See, is that cliche for cliché's sake? Like, is it cliche because it's always been done, or is it cliche because of the structural necessity of it?
I mean, it is a structural necessity, but I'm sure there are other ways that people never really thought of. I mean, I haven't thought of any, but I'm sure somebody can come up with it. It only started with a Seagram building, which was, I think, it was built in 1954, so it hasn't been too long. It's only been 68. It's only been 64 years since we've done that.
True. Well, I think so. And there are lots of other things that I think are cliches in architecture that do then act. They become this matter of chivalry in a way. Let me think of something. Hotels a lot of times they have porte cocheres, which they're like that covered parking area right by the front door. Mm-hmm. That is a thing that denotes a luxury hotel.
Was it really cliche or is it chivalrous?
See, that's the thing, because it's like, okay,
do you as a client want to arrive to a hotel in the rain and get out of your car and have to unload your luggage in the rain? Right. I don't think so. So then it becomes to a point, it may seem cliche, but is it more chivalrous than cliche?
Yeah, it's chivalrous. But yeah, see, and that's the thing, is it's a reason. Cliche or chivalrous? And why?
ADA ramps.
ADA ramps. So for those of you who are not in the building industry or may not be familiar with ADA, that's the American Disabilities Association.
So they're inclined ramps for people that are paralyzed.
Yeah,
have wheelchairs Any sort of handicap.
The little curved ramps that you go up from each side of the stair.
Yeah.
That's the ADA ramp. That's a handicap ramp.
Yeah, so like those are standards that are set in place to take care of people that have disabilities. And that's not just with ramps, but there are, certain bathroom standards, things like that. So that is another interesting thing. It's like
bathroom. Bathroom stall.
Yeah, the bathroom stalls. And so that is definitely a chivalrous thing. Cliche, I think cliche to me personally is more of a thing that like it occurs so much, but it occurs so much because we choose it to occur. We decide that we decide that cliche occurs. I think something that occurs naturally because it has to isn't necessarily cliche.
I think a cliche. I was just thinking of a cliche in a building.
Yeah.
And I think a cliche is a fire extinguisher in a building with full sprinkler accessibility.
Well, but to me, it's like that doesn't fall in the category of cliche because that's necessary. That's a necessity. A cliche for me would be porte cochere because there are hotels that don't have a covering outside the front door. Like, sure, unload your bags in the rain.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary, but it is. It has
polite.
become a stamp. It is a polite thing. It's become a stamp. It's
Helipads.
Helipads
on top of high rises.
skyscrapers?
Yeah.
Those are cliche.
That's pretty cliche.
Necessary though.
Depending.
Let's think about a hospital.
Well, I mean, hospital. We have to think of hospitals as not high rises, but a different set of buildings. I think.
I think on hospitals they're definitely necessary.
Yeah, they have to. They have to be there.
Yeah.
For the Medivac.
So when you mean high rise, you mean like office buildings?
Yeah,
banks.
the high rise office buildings. I mean, it's good to have, but is it really necessary for them to have?
Well, I mean, neither of us work in a business or an office building that has a helipad, so we don't know the importance to them for that helipad.
I think most of the helicopters that land at the office building helipads are used for escort of important.
Well, now if you think about it, it could be a necessity for a, let's say a dangerous situation in the building, some sort of hazardous, situation, whether it be, terrorist attack. Someone tries to, walks in the building with firearms, and you need the most important people. Kind of bad to pick people over other people, but the people that run the company, they need a quick way to get them out. What better way than to have a helipad? I mean,
yeah.
So I mean,
you could argue. Granted,
there's ways to argue necessity, but again, it comes off more a little cliche than it does necessity.
Yeah.
And it's portrayed in movies way too often, I think.
A lot of movies.
Yeah. I think one of the...
Well, we were watching a movie yesterday, Mr. Deeds, with Adam Sandler. Mm-hmm. And the office building has a helipad, and now you have to think, how often is it really ever used?
I mean, most of the time it's used for escorts.
I think most of them are just falling out of upkeep and stuff like that. Because it really is, that once in a blue moon when they do have somebody super special that has a helicopter shows up. I mean, that's not exactly normal.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because I think someone with a helicopter isn't very normal, but helicopter pads are for some reason, and on buildings, that's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah. What
other kind of things are cliches in architecture? Gated communities.
Gates? I think those are a little
gated
cliche.
Communities. I think.
Granted, we're all coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds.
I've only lived in an ungated neighborhood for a year.
See, I
think the whole point of a neighborhood is to feel connected. I think gating yourself is kind of a way of you want to disconnect yourself from everybody else.
I think the gated neighborhood is a modern day castle. I mean, we don't need the towers with archers for defenses.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a peace of mind kind of thing. Because, let's be honest, if the robbers go to rob the neighborhood, it's pretty low. I could jump over that fence when I was 13. I think a full able-bodied robber can jump over that fence like this without any problem.
Well, it gets rid of opportunists. But the actual robbers.
Well, if you think about it, most robberies are places that are really easy to get into, don't take a lot of work.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not really gonna stop anybody from doing anything.
Well, you're thinking about it in that way, but I feel like most of the reasons gated communities are created are just people of higher income want to separate themselves from everybody else.
That's also true. I mean, gated communities.
Not that they want to feel protected.
They do
Well,
take separate fees for that gate.
Here we are though talking about protection again. You know, protection, chivalry.
That's why I compared it to a modern-day castle.
It always comes back. It always comes back to that level of protection, which is interesting. That level of safety, and I think we find patterns wherever there are cliches in architecture. It usually has to do with chivalry. And
we live in a gated community.
oh yeah, we totally do. Yeah, we're super rich. Our fancy.
It's still
student
gated.
housing.
Yeah.
It's gated. You're right. I think we find anywhere there is a cliche in architecture, it ties somewhere to safety and chivalry. And it ties to safety because there's something about those cliches, whether they're necessary or not, that relates to either literal physical safety or a mental state of mind that is peaceful, or something that, it is a protection from either, the rain or the elements. These kind of cliches that we have. I think that's kind of an interesting conversation. That definitely didn't take a direction I expected. The whole thing.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm going back and thinking about all the fence heights.
Sean's like going back to his fence jumping days. Well, would you guys have any closing remarks regarding the specific cliche architecture? There's a lot of things to talk about cliche architecture.
I don't want to get into a whole nother conversation. I feel like we should just kind of start to wrap it up. It is Friday night.
Yeah,
36. Yeah, we got a Friday night to go. We're running about 37 minutes right now. So
I mean, let cliches be cliches. You don't have to be a part of it.
I mean, that's the thing, is usually cliches are cliches for a reason, but I think it's interesting that we found this connection between safety and the cliche in architecture, and maybe that's a way for cliches everywhere else too.
I mean, but I also think there's a part of you that should be predictable or cliche, but there's also a part of you that should not be, that should be unpredictable.
That's the bad boy in Colin speaking right now. Unpredictable.
I think to be completely predictable doesn't make you different. And I feel like this whole thing in architecture, everybody's trying to make a name for themselves. The only way to make a name is to be partially predictable, but also have that portion that's unpredictable to leave people kind of wondering what...
You need a level of safety.
Yeah.
A level of newness to keep people interested, but a level of safety...
to also keep you protected.
To keep you protected and for them to feel safe with you,
Yeah.
And ironically, I think that's what people should look for in a relationship. A little bit of thrill, but enough safety to help you feel at home.
Okay, I'm definitely not.
All right. That's where we should end it then. Any other remarks here?
No.
Okay. Because I'm gonna start getting relationship advice and stuff without that being solicited. All right. So thanks for listening. We appreciate y'all tuning in to episode 3 of our podcast. Stay tuned for episode 4. We're going to keep going. And pretty soon here, we'll be recording, I think, in El Paso, which will be kind of an interesting experience for all of us. So stay tuned. What?
No, we'll be recording next week. We don't leave till the week after next.
Yeah, pretty soon, though.
Yeah.
I said pretty soon. Not next week, but
sorry.
the week after.
That's my Wheaties. My Wheaties are interfering with my brain concentration.
Yeah, it's hard. All right, guys. So we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Share us. Post about us. Tell your friends.
Make sure to comment, man. We need
Subscribe.
some comments. I'm getting bored.
Yeah, Colin wants comments, you guys. And
negative, positive, it doesn't matter. You can send me a winky face emoji.
I don't know. After this episode, I don't know about the negative comments.
I think Sean did a pretty good job. So,
but
all right.
Yeah, please do it.
We love y'all. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.